Hi, everybody. This is Anthony. Good morning. Say hi, JoLynn.
Hi, JoLynn. No, good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Not bad, not bad. We thank everyone for joining on our monthly webcast. There's a lot going on, obviously. We'll get right to it, but obviously we'll do some plugging, with our information, because in case you want to reach out to us, you don't have to wait to the end. You can, hear it right now. There's many ways to reach out to us. You can contact us on Industrial UI, on the LinkedIn. Again, Industrial UI Services. You can contact me. My email is aparadiso@industrialui.com. And JoLynn, how can everyone reach out to you?
Jharesign at industrialui.com, and it's JHARESIGN.
Perfect. Thanks. So we'll get right into it. So again, there's a lot going on, but we figured the best topic for this month's webcast was really what's going on in Israel and really kind of discuss, how organizations can handle any kind of hate comments, hate speech. So it's not really, I mean, again, there's so much going on with Israel, but this can relate to anything that goes on, at your organization. But with the Israel situation, there's been a lot of issues that have come up, and those issues can derive just from international business disruptions to to hate speech and whatnot to organizations on the production floor. There's obviously opposing views, and as you probably all know, as you're listening to this, there has been obviously terrorist attacks in Israel. What happened October 7th, and the White House did issue a number of statements. But we figured this would be a nice conversation just to kind of just to give some feedback and direction on what organizations can do. So the first question we're gonna pose here is: due to the latest Israel-Hamas crisis, how should employers deal with anti-Semitism or any hate speech for that matter? So JoLynn, how would you handle any kind of hate speech, especially right now going on with everything?
Yeah, so, throughout my lifetime, as someone who was in the workplace, during September 11th, when a lot of the anti-Muslim sentiment was happening, there have been conflicts throughout the world in different hotspots. The workplace is always supposed to be, in as much as it can be, a neutral zone, where we want to keep our workplace professional as much as we can, understanding that there's going to be a swell of emotions surrounding different issues. People are affected by the crisis in Ukraine. They have family members. There are people who are going to be affected by, what's happening in the Middle East right now. And the one thing that we should remain consistent on as HR professionals in the workplace is that hate speech, no matter where it comes from, who it's directed towards, cannot be tolerated in the workplace. Because not only do we have special provisions in federal and state laws that prohibit this kind of behavior in the workplace, there's no reason on the face of the earth that we should be, we can express support for one area or one organization or one, sentiment, but it's not okay to direct hate towards another. So making that pretty clear from the get-go, trying to keep the workplace neutral, make sure you're enforcing your policies consistently, and understand that hate speech has no place in the workplace.
Yeah, the one word you mentioned that's really I'm finding myself, as my career kind of develops and as I grow, the one word I hear from you, one word I hear constantly is that consistency. You want to be consistent with your policy, and there is like JoLynn mentioned, there's a lot of organizations out there, a lot of groups, and you're, in the United States, you are, you can be involved with any group you want to be, with free speech and whatnot. But you don't want to also, you don't want to be disrespectful at the workplace and cause any disruption or disrespectful towards other people, because you are working with people. I mean, that's what it is. And we're at a workplace, either if it's remote, virtual, hybrid, whatever it is, from 9 to 5 for the most part. You're at the workplace, you're dealing with people at all times, and you don't want to have to deal with hate, obviously. I mean, you don't want to deal with it personally as well. So yeah, so I think being consistent with your policy, making sure you have a policy in place about that. If something does happen, being consistent all around. Don't, pick or favor one individual group and another, making sure that if you do discipline one group or person, that you also discipline in the future the same way, being consistent with your with how you're disciplining your employees and how you're dealing with your other employees. Which then leads us to the next question, how should organizations handle any kind of heated arguments that are happening? So JoLynn, if there was a heated argument happening at our organization, how would you handle that?
That's a good question. I actually did some training on conflict resolution, and I think people, mostly frontline supervisors who deal with their employees every day have a tendency to think, one of two ways. Well, I'm just going to let them work it out themselves. I'm not going to intervene, or if I'm going to intervene, I'm going to stick them both in a room with me and we're going to just hash it out. And I understand the instinct because supervisors are much more focused on, keeping the peace. It's like you're a parent and you're trying to diffuse a sibling, rivalry, sibling, conflict. However, that I find that approach is not as effective as you would think. Number one, people tend to shut down. They feel like they're not being heard. You should definitely involve HR when there's a workplace conflict. If you don't have an HR department, I would reach out to a higher level manager to make sure that you can have a different perspective. Number one, if you're a first line supervisor, you are intimately familiar with your personalities that you deal with on a daily basis. And sometimes it's hard to remain neutral. So it's always good to have another manager to kind of give yourself a buddy and for lack of a better word, to approach this issue. And then I would talk to them separately. If there's more than two parties, we want to make sure that that person is being heard, their point of view is being heard in a individualized setting. And then we approach it from that direction and make them understand that while we understand that, tensions flare, emotions get the best of us sometimes, that the bottom line is that we work as a team and we need to listen to each other and respect other people's point of view, but ultimately it should not end in a conflict. And if the employees feel like you're on the brink of an escalating conflict with another employee, they should reach out to supervisor or a higher level manager or HR to make sure that they can intervene to keep that from happening.
No, absolutely. I think I think you're right too. Like, managers that are handling production and whatnot, their first instinct is, making sure that they're keeping things in order, and then obviously, letting their day continue on so they can continue to be productive. And I think they, managers tend to think right away, let's put the two together in their room or in the room and cash it out. That's how maybe we would handle it maybe at home. If we had, if we had a spouse, a partner, children, we may handle it that way. But obviously at the workplace, it's a little different. There are tensions flaring, especially, now when you have such a, when you have the actual, incident or, things happening as we're going, obviously there are high emotions. So it is best to bring people separately, talk it out, the manager and one of the people that had the incident, discuss it. What happened? Has this happened before? Just, try to get specifics, keep notes, like that's always best too, because you're going to be hearing different sides. So you don't want to forget things. I'm a forgetful person. So if I don't keep notes, I'll forget what's happening the next day. So keep notes, tell the person you're keeping notes, just kind of be mindful, be respectful. It is as confidential as we can make this to be. I mean, obviously things can come out, and if an investigation occurs or, whatever we find or whatever our findings are, things might come out, but we would try our best to keep things confidential. And it really depends too on what's happening, what the hate speech, what happened, was there did any fighting happen? Was there any violence as far as as far as actual physical violence? Maybe it is best, depending if there were clients that hurt, because this could happen anywhere. This could happen in a hallway, and other people may have heard it. So not just the two people that may have just had the interaction, but now you have other people that have also heard it. Maybe it is best to, I don't go much more into the detailed situation here because we don't really know the exact incident, but if there was violence or if there were people that were hurt by what was said, maybe a suspension is warranted for the time being. Again, you kind of want to make sure that you're also keeping the peace at work at the exact time. And sometimes you can't do that with the people that were involved in an incident at the workplace. So, and then again, keeping that consistent, if it's paid versus unpaid, making sure that you're keeping that consistent with how you dealt with things in the past. And then the next question leads to more specifically, there was a situation that happened at Harvard University where they received some criticism about their leadership's slow response to the deadly Hamas attack against Israel, which I guess kind of forms into that solidarity statement. When should statements be made, and about when should an institution, if at all, make any kind of statement? What are your thoughts on that, JoLynn?
Well, whatever statement you make should be aligned with your mission, vision, and values, and being mindful of, sometimes expressing support for a particular cause can tend to alienate other people that may be affected by, certain statements. And I 100% agree that in a humanitarian crisis, we want to side with the humans involved. Obviously we want to make sure that we are being mindful of the families and the children and the people that are affected by, any sort of devastating conflict. But again, going back to your, corporate mission, vision, and values is always the place to start, and understanding that, corporate social responsibility, your policies, making sure that all aligns with any statements that you're going to make, expressing support for one side, the other, or neither. You can also just express support for, the people involved, express remorse or sorrow or sympathy with the people that are being directly affected. But absolutely, companies make those decisions all the time. Who am I going to express my support for? And it should always align with your corporate mission.
No, yeah, 100%. It definitely should align with your mission, your vision. If you have a DEI statement or DEI specific mission or vision, absolutely. I also would make, if you are gonna produce a statement online, or you're gonna produce a statement to your internal staff, what have you. Especially, I noticed a lot of this, and I'm getting some requests now from friends, colleagues. They're asking me, what should we do? Should we make a statement on the recent attacks on Israel? And you got to be very careful, because again, like JoLynn mentioned, you don't want to alienate other people, and then you don't also want to pin the other opposing. So you don't want to make it like the opposing side is the making them feel as if they're the bad person when they really aren't. It depends, because it depends how you phrase the statement, and why it's very careful. But one thing you want to make sure too is that when you make a statement, to actually follow the statement. There were a lot of statements made during the George Floyd incident, and then there were a lot of there was also a lot of Asian hate crime that happened a year later with COVID, and a lot of organizations were issuing solidarity statements, statements in general about it, but really weren't backing up their statement. So make sure if you do issue a statement of some sort that you're backing it up. Just don't make a statement just to make one, because your staff, the employees, your clients are going to keep that statement in mind. And if they're finding things that are happening that are not backing it up, then that's going to be an issue. So you may solve a short-term problem as far as getting the statement out, but it could be a long-term problem if you're not actually, following through with that statement. So just be very careful, be very mindful. Depends too on the size of the organization. If you work for a small, medium-sized company, I would make sure maybe your staff hear the statement directly from, management, executive management, rather than seeing it from a post on like social media. The delivery also makes a difference too. So just be very careful how you do that, because how that's perceived is very important. And then going more specifically, when things happen, JoLynn, how would you handle, especially now with everything going on, how would you handle employees that ask for leave requests or want time off?
I would make sure that you're being consistent with all of your other, requests for leave. If someone is having a really hard time, if they have family members that are affected, if they themselves are affected, and, you know, our mental health, our emotional well-being is just as important as our physical health. So if you have, if the person has sick leave available and, the person is clearly struggling with the events that are unfolding, you want to be consistent and evaluate it as you would any other leave, and some people may want to visit family members over there, may request an extended leave. So we should be taking a close look at those, making sure that we are being consistent and evaluating the criteria as you would in any other, health related, medical, or, bereavement leave, things like that, making sure that we are being mindful of all those criteria.
Yeah, of course. I'll just add too, obviously, no matter what state you're in. I mean, there could be state specific guidelines, compliance. So just be aware of that. But I think also just take the human approach to it. If you notice someone's having an issue and they haven't said anything, maybe going up to them and actually speaking to them, taking them to a private room, making them feel comfortable. I think that's the first approach too, because some people may not want to voice it right now. They may be, they might be shy or timid, or everyone is different. There are many different kind of people, introverts, extroverts. So be mindful of that, and just take the human approach to talk to the person. Maybe they have to leave early for maybe the next few days, or whatever it is. I think the main thing, as we mentioned in the first part of this too, with the first question, and JoLynn mentioned it too with this question, is being consistent. If you're doing this with one employee, that consistency is such a huge component on how you should handle things, because again, you can't show favoritism, because that could also jeopardize and hurt the organization down the line with either any kind of EEOC complaints or Department of Labor, whatever it is. Many factors can happen if you're not taking that consistent approach and not following your handbook. So definitely, but again, I think taking the human approach is the first avenue, and then seeing how you can manage it, and then going from there.
Yeah, I agree. The first word in human resources is human.
Exactly.
And one other thing I would stress is that, our biggest job as human resources professionals is to listen to managers, listen to employees, but also listen to yourself. There are, times in which these external conflicts have a direct impact on your daily work life, and make sure that you're taking time for yourself, for your own mental and emotional well-being, because you're the support for your managers and your employees. And if you're not supporting yourself, it's going to be all that more difficult for you to be a resource for your managers and employees and your executives, to be that, neutral arbiter in as much as you can. So make sure you're taking time for yourself and always assessing, am I getting my emotional needs met? Am I taking the right approach to this? Be human for yourself as well as for others.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you mentioned. I mean, obviously the human is in human resources, so that's obvious. So yeah, definitely with that. And then also, I think, JoLynn, you make a very good point. As HR professionals, we are that support, and even though we may not be directly impacted with something going on right now, if we have many employees that are, and we're listening constantly throughout the day, hearing those stories, that could also have a direct impact towards us, even though we're not directly impacted ourselves. So again, mental health is such an important topic. I mean, thankfully we are learning that, and we are taking it seriously. So yeah, definitely HR professionals, or our professionals in general, should be making sure that you are taking that mental health, that needed time. When weekends come, making sure you keep time with your family and your friends and yourself, and not doing work and maybe if you need a Monday off or a Friday or a Wednesday, taking that day off because and not doing work, keeping to yourself because making sure that you as an HR professional are well rested is important in order for you to also help out your organization and your employees. And then this the last question we have, and this may work with the presentation you provided, JoLynn, is what are ways to resolve workplace conflict and when should HR step in? We kind of mentioned this throughout the, today, but specifically how again should we resolve conflict and when should HR actually step in?
I think HR should always be in the loop because, especially if you have new managers or managers who are unsure of how to deal with specific conflict, HR should always be there to provide guidance and counsel to their managers on how to resolve conflict. HR should definitely step in when, it goes into something more than this just, a personality conflict. I don't like this person, they don't like me. Those things are bound to happen, and the supervisor is certainly well equipped to deal with those types of issues. When it comes to more serious issues like discrimination, harassment, hate speech, sexual harassment, anything of that nature, HR should be directly involved in those situations, and managers should be using their HR department or whoever acts as their HR department, or us. We can certainly come out and help give you guidance and counsel on those situations, to make sure that people are heard, people are listened to, and that you're being mindful and mitigating any risks that may be coming towards your organization because of what's going on.
Yes, nice plug, JoLynn. You can definitely reach out to us for sure. We even if you have the HR staff and it's a really important matter. Not that every matter is important, but if there's a higher level person it's happening with and you want that outside perspective, we do many outside investigations, and and a lot of our clients, employers are happy they use that source because it does give them a very fresh perspective that they didn't see if things were handled only internally. So definitely outside perspective helps. I even if HR isn't directly involved, it depends on how your organization handles this, but I would definitely at some point HR should be involved or at least be aware of the situation because there should be, if there's a file, there should be some kind of file for each employee. There should be a note that this occurred, this happened, there was a conversation, because if anything does ever happen where there is, Department of Labor steps in or EEOC steps in, at least if you have some kind of notes involved, that will be very helpful for any investigation and will certainly help the organization, which is what we want to strive for. We want to help the organization, save them obviously on any kind of financial liability. And then everything we mentioned here today too really also just helps the team to be more productive, more effective, more collaborative, just better team. If we get along and we respect one another, and again, we may not like one another sometimes. That's just going to happen, as JoLynn mentioned. It's just human nature. Again, that human part, we are not going to get along or like every person we were with. It's just the way it is. So again, that's just human nature. So it's just kind of how we deal with that. Because again, ultimately, our bottom line is just making sure that our teams can work efficiently together, and being respectful. And everything we mentioned today really is just a way to help with that. We're almost at our end mark. Is there anything you want to end, JoLynn, with? Anything in detail, specific at all?
No, I think we've covered everything that we wanted to cover today.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Again, our information to reach out to us. My email is aparadiso, A-P as in Paul, A-R-A-D as in David, I-S-O, at industrialui.com. And JoLynn, again, how can they reach you?
Sure. jharesign, jharesign at industrialui.com.
Perfect. Again, if you want to go on Industrial UI, you can go to our website, LinkedIn. We're certainly your HR friend. So any questions, reach out to us. If you have any particular or topics you want us to cover, or any guests that are interested, reach out to us. We can definitely hook up and figure out what's the best way to move forward. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Be safe.
Thank you.